Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be a part of this international webinar series on past, present, and future, the global pandemic and India, COVID-19. And if you see around the world, people are talking of this. What would happen in near future of COVID-19? How? What are the next and normal or the norms that we have it? And so that was the whole idea, the genesis of this international webinar, and to have the impact on various sector. So it could be art, culture, film, cinema. So on and so forth. I mean, there are multiple issues, and then ultimately we must learn to live with the new normal, that what we call it. And today we are going to take different topic, the broad topic, which is the role of advanced IT, that we have it. And then here we will talk of the blockchain, on impact of blockchain, especially what blockchain is all about, and also its impact. Today we are going to cover two sectors. One is health and other is the education. And also about the digitization, the robotic and procurement that we have it. As you all know, the digitization innovation is delivering unparalleled level of progress, giving rise to an era we know today as the fourth industrial revolution. And technology is the key enabler for the globally. Every country is making 2030 strategy, and that would ensure any organization to retain its competitiveness, and grows sustainably and take full advantage of market opportunity. Then came this Corona 19, so everybody has to change the focus, and that's what we are here today to talk about. And it's my honor to introduce you our two distinguished panelists. We have Miss Deepika Sachdev. Hi, Deepika.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. And also we have Mr. Iliya, Iliev. Let me give you a brief about these two experts that we have today. And Miss Deepika has over 25 years of experience right now. She is a vice president with Nosis Private Limited and in Singapore, and she is head pre-sale Siemens International Information System with IBM, the big data professional, where she has worked in digital marketing and telecom, so on and so forth. Such an expert she is in, and it will be a pleasure to listen to her views on the blockchain, that the part one of our talk today. And it's my pleasure to introduce our other guest, Mr. Iliev, who is an online development manager, product sales in Europe and Africa at Wärtsilä, Finland. So, good morning, Mr. Iliev. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
It's our pleasure. Mr. Iliev is a graduate from Kingston University, and having a major in marketing management, and also University of Vasa, where he did Master of Science in International Business. So he has over 8 years of experience, and currently he is with Wärtsilä. So this is the background of our distinguished guest. So to begin with the lady, I may ask Deepika to begin with. Her expertise has been the blockchain. So, Deepika, I would like to know from you the concept of blockchain, although it is known to only one segment. So, our program has been watched by people from various background, from all walks of life. So, in briefly, if you can explain the blockchain and how this blockchain is making enable to these two sectors which I have just mentioned, health and education, and post COVID, how you are going to see the scenario, how blockchain is going to help us all. Over to you, Ms. Deepika.
Thank you, Dr. Pokhriyal. I think first, let me talk about my love with blockchain. So I think I was introduced to blockchain around 2015, 2016. At that time, blockchain to the world was more around crypto. So it started with Bitcoin and mining, and it even had some negative connotations because people were using it for illegal trading around 2015. But where I saw value for blockchain and where I started going deep into blockchain is where I realized that it's the internet of value. So when I read about the concept of blockchain, I realized this is a concept which will break the boundaries around the world. So first, what is blockchain? In very simple terms, blockchain is a technology which will let people communicate who have no previous interactions with each other. In fact, people who have little trust. So typically, if you see business, how does business operate today? It operates between known parties. So A and B know each other. They start a business because they trust each other. Now, where we are going with blockchain is to a trustless world. So there came a stage where if two parties want to communicate with each other, but they don't have trust, what we got was intermediaries. So for example, if you want to sell your house, you want to sell it to a person, but you don't know the person. Then what do? You go to an intermediary, and that's where you spend a lot of money, a lot of time for the intermediary. What blockchain is doing is it's breaking all the barriers of trust. So any two organizations, two people who have no previous experience with each other, if they want to start trading, that's the power of blockchain. In more technical terms, blockchain is a distributed ledger, which means it's writing to a database which is immutable. Immutable means nobody can change it. Why? Going a little more into the technology, because blockchain is controlled by distributed people. So typically, let's say I have a ledger and I write to it, I am the owner, and any transaction I go and modify. But the blockchain is distributed, which means it's copied around multiple people. And that is the reason why it becomes so powerful. So, two concepts to remember about blockchain. First is it is decentralized. It's not owned by anybody. Second, it's immutable. What is written on the blockchain will never be modified. So with these basic concepts of blockchain, let's now come into today's scenario where we have COVID. Now, the way we see COVID today, there are probably two big problems which we have to face. One is the treatment. We know people who are infected, how to cure them. And the second is around the isolation of people. The biggest problem today with COVID is that it spreads. There is no way to control it, which means we have to quickly identify quarantine people and put them in isolation centers. So we'll start with the second problem first. What we want to do is isolation of people, identification as well as isolation of people in a manner that it is trusted by everybody. Now, today in the whole IT space, when we look at it, we are in a very unique place. IT has really spearheaded in the last 5 years. So we have blockchain, and blockchain is augmented by two more technologies which have really emerged. The first is IoT, the Internet of Things. So what IoT does is it goes to the masses. So if I want to do any small surveillance, if I have to put cameras anywhere, do remote surveillance of any kind of equipment, that's where IoT is very powerful. So IoT is there to bring information from all the remote parts of the world The other great technology which we have seen is cloud. So what cloud is enabling is that without any investment in infrastructure, I can go to a platform and request for services. So what we see in today's world is that these two technologies, IoT, cloud, and blockchain together, are producing such a powerful ecosystem that with minimal investment, what we get is a technology which is foolproof and trustworthy. So let's take simple use cases which we would apply here. Now, slowly as the world begins to open travel, so let's say India decides that there are some countries with which we have safe corridors for travel. So let's say India decides Singapore is a safe corridor, Canada is a safe corridor. With these countries, India says, okay, I'm going to allow my people to travel and I'm going to allow them travel without quarantine periods. Now, what does this mean? It needs two things. One is verification that my people whom I'm sending out are healthy. So doing their testing their temperature, their basic parameters to ensure that they are healthy. And the second is to put this into an immutable ledger. So once India says, yes, XYZ is healthy, it needs to be put on a sealed wax in such a way that that person can go to any part of the world and it is so confidential that nobody will trust it. So you see now how the two technologies are coming. We have IoT, which is bringing remote surveillance. So anybody can go remotely, he can measure his temperatures, his blood pressure, put all his parameters, remotely do his verification that yes, I am healthy. Through IoT, the information comes to a central device, and after which we bring in blockchain. So once all this information is put on the blockchain, we have what is called, like we have passports today, now technology is talking of a immutable health passport, which this combination of IoT and blockchain is enabling. So somebody, once he has it stamped on him that I have an immutable health passport certified by India, then when he goes to other countries, let's say he goes to Canada, he goes to Australia, it is verified. Now, the other power which blockchain brings is smart contracts. So it's not just a plain ledger, it also has transactions which can be built upon it. You can build rules around it. So let's say Canada has a rule which says if you have given the health certificate, it is valid for the next 14 days. But Australia says your health certificate is valid for only 7 days. So here the rules are varying. So with blockchain, what we can do is we can write smart contracts and build different rules based on the countries. So now what we have is a health passport which is intelligent. Based on the country you go to, it can implement the rules and it can say, yes, the person is certified to enter into the countries. So this is a big impact. So I mean, health passports was one example where I gave. But again, coming back to blockchain, what it is enabling is communication across trusted organizations. So let's say tomorrow I create masks, I'm making masks or I'm making vaccines tomorrow. But I go to a different country and they say, how do I trust that your vaccines are correct? You know, counterfeit medicines have always been a problem. But once this information is on the blockchain, so IBM has been working with a lot of supply chain device companies to create blockchain for automation for these. So now the whole communication trust across organizations is going to a totally different platform once we bring the power of IoT and blockchain together. So that was a quick brief around medical, and then coming to our second vertical, which is around education. I think today all the students are very challenged. It's a very tough time for all the students we have worldwide. Schools are closed. There were children who were in class 12 who had to join colleges. There were children who wanted to do courses, but now all the institutes are closed. So the power of remote education has to become extremely important now. So again, there are two aspects here. One is I need to have educational information which is trustworthy. Second is I need to get certificates which are accepted worldwide. So I could come to a university in Dehradun, do a degree there, but I want it to be certified so that tomorrow when I present this certificate to my university in the US, it is accepted without any questions. Again, this is where we see the power of blockchain again. So it's given me a ledger where, let's say my university has stamped, it has said I have done my medical science degree. It is unquestionable. I can go to any university in the world and they will accept it. let's say I am a remote university. Let's say tomorrow I start a new remote university and I put my material. I want to ensure that nobody else is tampering. So again, I put my information on blockchain, and then it can be accepted by anybody. So you see, Dr. Pokhriyal, this is how the whole world will change slowly. I mean, without actually physically meeting people, trusting people, we have a protocol which will enable communication, trust, and business transactions with a lot of confidence and also with legal roots built into it. So it's going to be the game changer going ahead.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Mr. Iliya for his expert talk on digitization, just keep one question in mind. I'll come back to you, Ms. Deepika, on for common man to understand, because the social distancing is what we anticipate in near future, how these two the technology, IoT and blockchain is helping the common man in their daily life. And you can give the same example of education sector and the medical sector, which you have mentioned. So Mr. Iliya, I gave in my briefing about the digitization, and that's the topic. So to begin with you, I just want to you to tell our viewer that what is digitization and how this impacts the business pre and post COVID. And then the second one is the social distancing, whether the robotic process automation, how it is going to help. And then so on and so forth, we will talk about the new leadership which is emerging and the entrepreneurship and e-procurement. So over to you, Mr. Iliya, on the basic concept of digitization.
The digitalization as a term is not a new term. We have been using and digitalizing since the internet was born, so to say. But what specifically, by definition, the digitalization is the process basically of changing from analog to digital format. So this process that is created as such it's about digitalization of data, and without any different kind of changes to the process itself. As I mentioned, it comes in many different formats. The interesting thing about the digitalization, that even though it's not a new thing, it's still evolving, it's still developing, and all companies around the world are trying to digitalize their operations as much as they can, especially now in the setting of COVID-19. This is very well seen, and it's a very good example. And when talking about digitalization as such, many companies go and start offering their services and products online more and more. So this is also part of the process, how to bring those products and services online. There are companies that are not having any more physical shops. For example, car manufacturer like Tesla. In many countries, they don't have physical shops, so you can't go and see the car that you're used to in the traditional way. The only way to buy the car is go online on their website, log in, and just order one, and it will be delivered to your home. And this is with many, many other products and services. So what companies are doing is that they're racing, to provide the best customer experience with those online platforms that they're developing. Because the fight for customers, especially in the COVID-19 situation, it's very tough. It's indeed very tough. And the question is how to attract those customers, how to make it easy for them, not to make it too complicated, because there will be users who are maybe logging to your company for the first time. And it's important for those users to be easy taken, marketed correctly, and to be able to buy those products and services. So digitalization comes, as I mentioned, in various forms. It can be internal digitalization within the company. Many companies are moving now to cloud services, exporting their internal data, everything to be put online, so they're not stored anymore in local drives. And that's one aspect, actually, blockchain technology that Deepika mentioned, that can also help, and it's totally investigated by companies, how blockchain can change the world by the use of data attached to the blockchain technology, which is going to be more efficient. But yeah, and speaking about external, there's also digital marketing. There's many different forms of digitalization, and if you think about using the video conferencing, this is also a form of digitalization. People are not able to meet physically as they have used to, and then how they do business is they meet online via platforms like Zoom, Skype, Teams, and so on. So this is also a form of digitalization, and it's those platforms have their usage have increased tremendously because people have the need to socialize, and digitalization is one of the ways to achieve that. Yes, I think this is shortly about the digitalization. If I talk maybe about e-procurement, that's something that's also very tightly connected with digitalization. E-procurement, or in other words, is electronic procurement. So this is the process of companies purchasing their products from their suppliers by online, and this is something that is very heavily used at the moment. In many traditional companies, people have been traveling so far around the world, meeting in person, shaking hands, so to say, to close deals, etc. And right now, what we see this shift in this pandemic period is that the companies are starting to integrate more and more with such e-procurement platforms where they can purchase their goods online as well. Similarly to the way the regular end users are using digitalization to purchase their goods, like groceries and so on. It's similar also from B2B point of view. And what I mean is business to business point of view for the companies as well. And this is a really interesting phenomenon. You might ask why this hasn't been done so far. Because it's improving the efficiency, the speed of operations, the cost for companies. But we should never forget that there are other factors such as the trust factor, doing the business factor. It's also very important. And also the change management is something has been that always takes time when doing those things. And maybe now the COVID-19 was the reason that change management was kind of forced to speed up and have a better enhancement on those technologies and development. And then in that regard, there are also emerging technologies such as was mentioned, the Internet of Things, blockchain, robotic process automation, which I have had experience with. And specifically for the robotic process automation, this is, I think there are about 10 to 20 different software companies that are creating such applications that are helping businesses and consumers in general who want to use those to do any manual tasks on behalf of the person. So I can give you one example. There was a process in my company that we built, and the process was taking about 4 hours of manual work. That if I had to do it myself, checking different Excel files, extracting data for those, comparing the data, working with the data, and in order to find certain result. And by building the robot that would do exactly the same actions that I have been doing, it was taking less than 5 minutes. So you can see how the time was saved, and that's huge for especially for big companies, in terms of saving costs. And especially in the time of the pandemic, this is something that the companies are heavily pursuing, trying to find ways how to save costs, because obviously the revenues are going down, the operating profit is going down. The end users and then the suppliers and customers are reluctant on buying new services and products. They try to postpone all the purchases that they have been making or plan to make because of all this global economic recession that has formed because of the coronavirus. And having these technologies like the robotic process automation is a great way and tool to achieve great costs. Speaking about enterprises and entrepreneurship and small medium enterprises, this is also where it's very interesting to see how the shift is happening now in the COVID-19 situation. Many small companies unfortunately haven't been able to survive and then already have gone into bankruptcy. But there's also opportunity for many other businesses. As I mentioned, the digitalization is growing, the robotic process automation is growing, the blockchain technology usability is growing, Internet of Things is growing. So that creates a lot of opportunities, and it's kind of like it's shifting our business landscape in finding new experts in those areas, and those companies are able to prosper. And if you think about pharmaceuticals, now they are on the rise. Majority of the companies have been heavily raising, who find the vaccine for the coronavirus. And one way to get ahead of the game is all those companies are going online and trying to find all the information they can, and they start to collaborate as well, so they can speed up that process. So it's all connected at the end, and it's very interesting indeed, very interesting area, and it's I think that the future is looking very good, and even though we are in a tough times at the moment, and of course we have the social distancing limitations, I think that technology is the key to overcome this period and to go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, great. You touched upon 2-3 areas and how technology becomes enabler to beat the this massive challenge that we have it, what we call new normal. Just keep in mind, I'm coming to Deepika, and I would like to you to think over it, because the country you're living in, Finland, and I'm talking from India, which is most densely populated. So a concept of social distancing will be one of the greatest challenge, and unlike the country where you're talking from, the Finland. So I just want to know how this technology can be useful, because most of our audience are from India. So it will be a great help if you give your suggestive comment on that. So Miss Deepika, the question which I have asked you about the applicability of this blockchain, so that people they are able to relate to it when new normals are there. For instance, if a patient goes to the hospital, and how what are the various processes which are involved. So if he knows in hand, so that he would save time, and there are many other problems like car parking, and those issue can be resolved because space is a limitation. I do not know in future whether you would need so many cars or not. That's a different session we need to take on the concept of Ola, Uber, which is taking the car, because generally we keep a car 96% on stationary, only 4% of the time we use it. So coming back to your field of medical and the education, when a student is coming in, so what are the various processes and how the technology can help him post-COVID? Over to you, Ms. Deepika.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Pokhriyal. And Ilya, I think I totally agree with you. The whole pace of things at which technology is changing has like spearheaded since the whole COVID started. So coming back to the topic of social distancing, in fact, I was just thinking in Singapore now we have these robotic dogs. So if we go out for a walk or a jog on the street, we see these dogs who are there. They are robotic dogs, and let's say if there's anybody which is less than 1 meter apart, they actually start barking. So I think there are so many innovative applications which are coming out with technology that it's amazing to see that. Now, coming to blockchain and how blockchain is going to help the pandemic, I think one very important aspect of medical is that a lot of hospitals. So, today, when we read about vaccines, we see there are so many different institutes who are doing their research around vaccines. One limitation which a lot of people see around research is that it's very private. So let's say I have a piece of information. I am very reluctant to share it with the other researcher because I am afraid that the person will leak my information, steal it. It's very hard to control the communication share. That's where blockchain and AI are a very powerful combination. So, there are so many researchers who are using artificial intelligence. So, let's say today I'm doing a research on a drug and I need information. The whole power of artificial intelligence is the data which it feeds in. And the more data I get, the more powerful my research is. Obviously, the algorithms which the data scientists are writing is important. But the other important aspect is how much information I'm getting. And because of all these reasons we've discussed, traditionally researchers were not very keen to share information. And that's why one avenue which blockchain has opened for data scientists in the field of research is secure information. So whenever my information is now stored, so let's say I have done some research on COVID and I stored it into a database. Again, I make it an immutable database and I say I am giving access to X, Y, and Z companies. Because if you remember, we had talked blockchain has smart contracts. So when somebody tries to come and access this information, immediately the smart contracts triggers. First, it says, is the person authorized? Is that the right person authorizing? Then the other thing which blockchain does is it stores it again into an immutable database. So if you have accessed my information, it is again stored in this ledger, and publicly the whole world knows that this is my information. So previously IPR protection was such a big thing, but now with blockchain it's so simplified because all the information is lying on an immutable ledger, and from there I can immediately see who accessed. So now you see the whole world of artificial intelligence research, data science will go through a whole transformation because of blockchain, because people are so happy to share their information. The other aspect, again, coming to our combination of IoT and blockchain, is tracking. So even in India, actually, I must say India has done a fantastic job with Arogya Setu. Everybody has downloaded the app, and wherever they go, it is being tracked. So all this information on Arogya Setu comes into a centralized database, and we can do social distancing. So let's say I went to a place and somebody came there who was infected, immediately it gets tracked. Now where blockchain brings in the power is that this information can go into different databases. And again, the beauty of blockchain is that we have different flavors of blockchains. So let's say you have a very secure information. Like previously we were discussing, we have Ethereum, which is private blockchain, which is very, very secure. But we also have blockchains which are specialized for IoT transactions. For example, IOTA, which can keep all the information. So all the millions of transactions which come can be stored onto a blockchain like IOTA. So just to summarize, where blockchain brings in the power is two places. One is information is now accessible across untrusted parties because through blockchain I can trust them. And the second is now information is traceable. So that's where blockchain will make a huge difference to healthcare.
Mr. Iliya, you just gave 30-40 seconds of your view. The question which I have asked, the different the population density population we have it, and how the social distancing can be maintained?
Yes. So that's a very good question. And just to wrap up quickly, in Finland, of course, it's, in comparison to India, it's not very dense country. It's only 5.5 million people. However, still in the situation of the COVID-19, there have been very tough measures taken. Social distancing has been exercised with government regulations and so on. And for example, you cannot walk in freely to the hospital. It's basically closed for regular people. So you have to go on the phone or go digitally to book a specific appointments, and you have certain instructions to go to. Then going to different social places, you have to have, I think, a 2 meters difference between each other, not large groups together. And I think that the government is tracking all this. They have the street cameras as well. For example, the parking, you have the applications on your phone where you can see where is a free parking space. So, people not getting crowded on the parking spots as well. For example, in my office in the company, we have in 3 different cities in Finland offices. In India, we have also 7 cities, different offices. And I know that our company ID badges, they are used as a tracking device for all the employees. So as soon as you enter the office, you can see on the big screen who's where in the office. And we have all the dots, and you can track immediately right away who's using that conference room or that conference room, and so on. And this is really helping the social distancing to achieve those safety of people, so to say.
Yeah, great. Ms. Deepika, the same question, because Singapore good practices. If you see, the Singapore is also one of the densely populated country. So, perhaps what are the best practices where India can adopt post-COVID?
Right. So I think the first is having your mobile devices, which are used for tracking, enable them on always so that any kind of tracking can be done. And the second is, as individuals, we need to practice social distancing. I mean, it's beyond technology. We need to ensure wherever we go, we have our masks on so that we protect ourselves and we also protect others. So that's the lesson which we are seeing from all countries, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the countries who made it early and who have been able to contain the corona early. It's about technology, it's about individual, it's about our trust in each other. We have to be ourselves socially aware, and technology is always there to help and enforce that. In fact, the other progress which Singapore is doing is, like, we have the mobile apps. Now, Singapore is slowly moving to wearable tracking. So like Finland, Singapore is also about 5.5 million people here. And the government is planning to roll out wearable applications, something like a watch or something like a tag which we can wear. Slowly that will be rolled out to all the citizens of Singapore so that tracking will be enforced. So that's a good practice, but I must congratulate that India has also been doing a fantastic job on tracking.
Yeah, great. We had some time back the mass movement, the exodus of working class from one city to another city. And this gave me an idea, if those very cheap strap were given to those migrant worker, those who travel, so we would have entire history to be there as an information, then the tracking would have been much easier. Any town they go. I mean, that's a new idea, which is, I'm sure this government will think the only thing, if the cost of these, when mass production of these informative device is produced in India, so certainly it is going to help in a big way. So this is the we are moving towards the conclusion part. So I give a big thank and a round of applause to our both the speaker, who one is in Finland, other is in Singapore, and gave their expert comment, and the what are how the new technology can be used post COVID in their respective field, and what are the best practice can be utilized in India. I also want to thank the organizer, the Snehil Sastha, which is doing a fantastic job to having this kind of webinar session to create social awareness in various sector, and that has been Dr. Mamta Singh and Dr.Chetana. They are the driving force behind it, and a big thanks to you all. Thank you very much. So with this, we conclude this session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.